that is when you heard the deep cackling coming from the door.
Well, here we are, another week, another build. Welcome back to Zane Morgan Crafts. And if you're new here, hey, I'm Zane Morgan. Nice to meet you. I'm a crafter, I'm a 3D modeler, all around, I'm just a weirdo. So you're probably wondering, what do we have in store for this week? Well, do I have a treat for you? It's a build off. What? Kinda. So Chicken from Chicken's Tabletop Crafts, if you're not familiar with him, be sure to check him out. I put his link in the description. He reached out to me about having a battle of the builds of sorts, and he thought that it would be cool if we each make a witch's hut, but under the same build guideline. And of course I said, hell yeah, let's do this. So the guidelines were this. Number 1, it needed to have foam in it. Number 2, it had to include wood. Number 3, we needed to take one toy and some way incorporate it into this build. And number 4, it had to be 20 centimeters max in width and no more than 30 centimeters high. And then we also needed to complete this build in 2 weeks. And for number 6, I fought for this one. We could use 3D printing, but it could only be for doors and windows. Now fast forward 2 weeks. Chicken finished his in I think like 11 hours, which is insane. Me personally, I finished mine in about 3 days. And do you want to see my build? Because I'm pretty happy with it. Here it is. Anyways, stick around for the build process. There's going to, of course, be a montage at the end of some close-up beauty shots. I hope you guys like the build. Let me know in the comments. Be sure to give it a like. If you don't like it, that's cool. And if you haven't already, hit that sub button. Give me some love, share it with your friends. I'd love to know your thoughts on my build. All right, let's get into it. So I've always wanted to make a build that was inspired by my childhood, and I really loved making forts out of the root beds of fallen trees back in the woods that I used to play in. So the first step was creating a sketch of this and figuring out what I wanted to do. I took some thin sheets of XPS that I had laying around and I cut them to size. Using the Shifting Lands Pro Guide really comes in handy at this point. Next, I pre-textured my sheets of XPS with a wire brush and then cut some thin strips that would later act as wood supports. Originally, I was going to etch the rock portion of the walls with pen, but I decided to try something new later. Now that I have the structure cut out, it's time to figure out the placement of the base, which was just some scrap foam that I had glued together. And this is where I messed up. I forgot one of the main guidelines, and that was that it was meant to be 20 centimeters wide. This was much bigger. Whatever, I'm just gonna have fun with it. I decided that instead of etching the rock with pen, I would just rip pieces of foam to simulate rocks and just pile them as I would a stone or brick wall. I really like how this turned out, and I will definitely do this again in future builds. It's also a great way to use up some scrap foam. Now, it was time to glue it down. I knew the inside would be hollow because I wanted to add some lights later on because come on, it's me. I figured it would be too difficult to make a playable interior for this piece, so I opted out of that. Now look, I've already failed by making this project the wrong dimensions, and I was not about to fail again. But I really struggled with trying to figure out how I was going to incorporate a toy into this build, and I went to the dollar store and I found like this Barbie toy, and I figured out that it was not a good scale at all. So I decided to just cut it up and make it into like a fallen statue or something like that. I don't know. I really struggled with this part. If you're looking for a project that eats up your weirdly shaped foam bits, this is going to be the build for you. To create the mound of the hill that this hut would be built into, I just pieced together my scraps, not really caring about gaps as they would be later on filled in. Oh yeah, so now it's the fun part. I got to use my new favorite tool, and that's the handheld hot wire cutter. I used this to carve out the shape of the hill, and keep in mind I wasn't being too detailed because remember, nature is random and it's beautiful. So once the general shape is cut out, it's time to fill in the gaps with some drywall spackle. Ugh. And I forgot I wanted a chimney, and I really wasn't happy with how the side wall of the building met with the earth. So I decided to build part of the wall and the chimney with the same rock method that I had mentioned earlier, and that was just ripping up the foam. And this was a great addition later, as it added some varying texture and color to the build. After some grueling dry times, which was sped up by the help of a hairdryer of course, I applied some Montage, and now it was time to paint. As you know, painting is like my least favorite part to touch on. It's just really a bunch of dry brushing. Basically, I just coated the entire build in a brown, layered up the colors in like 3 lighter shades. The rocks were brown, then gray, then green, and then a hint of white for a highlight. I had created a wire tree using pipe cleaners. Check out Encounter Train's tutorial for that, as he's the one where I got the idea. And then I just coated that in the same brown and lighter highlights as the rest of the build, and eventually I opted for a more grayish brown color to signify that it was in fact a dead tree. And once all the paint was dry, it was time for one of my favorite parts, albeit the most messy, and that is static grass. I used a mix of lengths and colors to give it like a field appearance, and I added some yellowed grass on top of that once it dried, and then I added that also to the front of the building. I also made a vine using my vine recipe, which you can find in the video card above, and a citadel skull above the door just to sell that whole witchy vibe. And next it was just about dressing up the building with some foliage, and then Michael of Nat One Videos gave me the idea to just add some witchy icons a la Blair Witch Project to the tree. And here you see me adding the fallen statue Barbie thing. And I'm just adding some bushes from Woodland Scenics to really sell that overgrown vibe. So, fun story. I failed. So when I was putting this video together, I realized I didn't include any wood. So that makes 2 out of the 6 requirements not met. Boo. I mean, that's still... I failed. But that's okay. I had fun making this, and I just really enjoyed how the piece turned out. So it's a win situation. Now, if you really want to see something epic, I really insist on checking out Chicken's version of this build. He's calling it the Witch's Cabin, and it's just really cool. He added some really nice details and elements into it. Check that out. The link is in the description of the video. Super creative dude. His work just really speaks for itself. So give him a like. Say that I sent you. Look forward to seeing what you guys think. I forgot to mention, if you guys like the windows and the door that I used in this video, they are available on my Etsy. So head on over there. The link is again in the description, and it's on my YouTube main page up at the top. But I designed them specifically for this build, but they're kind of cool. There's 2 windows. One of them I did not use in this build. It's a double pane window, and then the one that you saw in the build, and then that door. So I think I'm gonna sell it for like $1 or something. Just check it out if you like it, and throw me a buck. That helps support this channel and continues to get great stuff out to you. So I hope you guys like it. Thanks again. Let's hit that montage.